Hi, I'm Ann Whitney. I'm in the next Wagon Wheel production of Noel Coward's Blithe Spirit, my script, and I'm playing Madame Arcadi. Hope you'll be interested in coming.
Well, you've been coming to the Wagon Wheel for many, many years.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about your history here, when you started, the show, some of the shows you've been in.
Yeah. Okay. I think my first show here was in 1983. And Tom Rowland, who was the artistic director then, was a friend of mine and my husband's for years and years. We went to college together at Northwestern. And he'd seen me do several things up in Chicago in community theater. And he asked me if I would like to come to the Wagon Wheel. Well, I was overwhelmed. My brother had worked here. McLean Stevenson had worked here many years before that. And I just never thought that I would be on that same stage in this lovely space. So, of course, I said, uh-huh. And he said, well, what I'd like to do is I'd like to start the season with On Golden Pond, and you play Ethel and I play Norman. And then we're going to end the season with Harvey, and you play Vita Louise, my sister. So, it was just a chance of a lifetime. And then we had he had auditions at Northwestern for the rest of the people that were going to be in these casts, and so he asked me if I'd read for those, and I said sure. So I went, and then all of a sudden he came up to me and he said, "What would you think if I asked you to sing something?" Well, I was terrified. I'd never sung anywhere but the shower. So I said, well, why would I have to do that? I don't have to sing any songs in those shows. Well, there's just that little camp song that Ethel sings, but I couldn't stop my mouth from going. And he said, I just want to know if you'd be willing to try that. So I said, okay, what do I have to sing? And he thought for a minute, and then he said, life is just a bowl of cherries. So I don't know why I said this, but I said, okay, I'll do it after lunch. So I went home. I sang Life is Just a Bowl of Cherries to myself at the top of my lungs, of course in my key. And then I decided this is not a good thing to do. I decided I would see what I look like when I sing. So I stood in front of my dresser mirror and I'm singing away. And the cat, I'm not kidding you, my cat jumped up on the dresser, put her paws on my shoulders as if to say, "Are you all right?" So I went back in the afternoon for this audition, and it turns out, I'm trying to make this long story shorter, but it turns out that that's not what I was supposed to sing. And there were 3 other girls singing before me the same song. There was, I can't remember now who they all were, but Laura Donnelly, you'll remember Laura Donnelly, and another wonderful gal with a really high soprano voice. So I was the last one through, and I remember just standing there, just paralyzed, and Tom's voice coming out of the audience saying, "Just sing it, Annie." So I started singing, and it was "You're the sail on my love boat. You're the cream in my coffee." So I sang that. When I got to a high note that I couldn't reach, I just go like that. And then he came up to me afterwards, and he said, "I just wanted to see if you can carry a tune. Do you want to do Good News?" So that was a show in the middle of the season. So anyway, that was my first season, 1983, Golden Pond, Good News, and Harvey, and that's where it all began for me.
And you've done many shows since then. I mean, yeah. And you redid on Golden Pond a few years ago, didn't you?
Yes, I did it again. And I've also done, let me think, I should have a list now, because there were some wonderful ones. And they all go right out of your head the minute you try to think about them.
Still Magnolias?
Still Magnolias, yes, I had a part in Still Magnolias. And I was here, a couple of summers, I was here for the entire season, which was an interesting thing for both my family and me, because I am married, my husband and I live in Evanston, Illinois. And our teenage son was still at home at that time, so the 2 of them were batching it for the whole summer. Gosh. And then, as it turned out later, one summer our son, Michael, came here, and he was the prop guy. And that was the year that we did Guys and Dolls, and I remember it was very was all very angst-ridden for him because he had to do blood bags when they had the big,
shootout.
Yeah, and I would stand with him outside that curtain from the main entrance, and we'd be just like this, hoping that the blood bags didn't break too soon, or that they did break when they were supposed to. So, and then our daughter Sarah worked here for a while. Our daughter Lisa and her family have been here as audience members a lot, and our son Steve and his family. And I mean, without the audience, who are we? So the whole family has been involved over these years to some extent or another. At one point, there were 5 owners of the theater, and my husband was one of them. So
makes it a special place.
Very, very special. And I must say, I haven't been here for a while now. And there are so many people who are not with us anymore that I miss so much. Roy Hine and Tom Rowland and Carol, Bruce's sister, and a whole lot of people that aren't with us anymore, but whose fingerprints are on this place. And it's so interesting to be doing this play, Blithe Spirit, which is about sort of a wacky medium who tries to contact spirits in the other world. And I mean, the first time I walked in here to start this, all of these spirits just came into my mind and my heart, and all the memories. And I don't know how many of the people that will be seeing this have seen our rehearsal room, but there are costumes hanging all around the ceiling. It's sort of a storage place. And I mean, if you glance up and I think, oh, that's the dress I wore in Harvey. Oh, there's the dress from Fiddler on the Roof. So all of that starts coming in too. I mean, it's kind of heavy duty a little bit. Yeah.
But along with the shows of Wagon Wheel and stuff, you've also been in a couple of movies.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this, I think, a few years ago.
Yeah.
But for people who may not be familiar with you, you've been in what are some of the movies you've been in?
Well, Home Alone, the first Home Alone. I don't know how many there are now.
I think there's 3.
Yeah, but the first Home Alone, and I played the drugstore clerk. And you may remember when Macaulay Culkin, the little boy, his parents had left. They'd gone to Europe. They had his bag. They have everything in it that he needs now. And so he goes to the drugstore to buy a toothbrush. And that was my big scene. And the interesting thing to me, because I hadn't done a whole lot of movies before that, is that it was about 3/4 of the way through the movie that you see this scene, but it was the first day of the shoot. And everybody was ecstatic because it was snowing. There was this huge blizzard going on. It was on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And they were so glad because they knew they wouldn't have to make artificial snow for a lot of their stuff. So that was really fun. And John Hughes was a great guy. Now he's gone too.
Yeah.
It was funny. I had auditioned for a movie and been cast before I read the whole script. And when I read the script, I realized that for several reasons I did not want to be in this movie. And so I had to find a way to tell the agent that I didn't want to do that. And she tried to convince me. She said, well, we can put it on a reel for you, just your scene, your courtroom scene, and it'll be great. And I thought, yeah, but I don't want to be in the movie. So she said, okay, and I could get out of it. But I had a little off time from this shoot with John Hughes, and I told him what had happened, and I said, so do you think I made a mistake by not being in the movie? Because now I could have had it on my resume. And he said, well, I don't know what that movie was, but I'll tell you, having this movie on your resume is going to be better than sliced bread.
Yeah.
And it's true, because there's always a new generation of kids coming up who want to see Home Alone.
Oh, yeah.
So I have kids who look at me in the grocery store sometimes, and they say, there's the Home Alone lady. And I know they probably saw it the day before.
Yeah.
So it was a great one. And then I had a bigger part in a movie rather recently that was called Sugar. It is called Sugar. It's about baseball players from the Dominican Republic.
I think I've seen that. I haven't seen it, but I've seen it.
Yeah, it's a good one. And I had an interesting audition for that. Auditioned 4 times for that movie. And the last audition was with this young couple who actually wrote it and directed it. and they were passing through Chicago trying to make final, decisions about people. And so we sat in this hotel room, and they were so nice, and they said, "Now, just tell us, do you like baseball?" And any Cubs fan will understand this. My eyes filled up with tears. I said, I'm a Cubs fan. And explained that I had been since I was like 7 years old. And so then we talked a lot about baseball. My brother played baseball. And then they videoed a scene, and I got the part. It was great. I went to Iowa for about a month. And it's a sweet movie about these guys who come up from the Dominican Republic. There's actually a baseball university there. Different major league teams have a college there to teach guys how to play. And it's the one way that a lot of them can get out of the Dominican Republic and make some money to send home to their families. So they come up. The first scenes are in Phoenix at some lower level team, and then they're moved up to Davenport to a Class A, and it's the one before the big leagues if they're going to be called up. And I play the lead's landlady in Iowa.
Okay.
So we have some very nice scenes at the baseball field and in our home. So it was great. It was fun.
Now, I understand, or at least I was told, that this show might be your last at the Wagon Wheel, or is that was just a bad rumor?
You just never know, do you? What's going to happen in your life? I don't know. It's. Can I confess something? It's getting harder to learn the lines. Yeah. It takes a lot of energy. I don't know whether I had somebody say to me just the other day, "Yeah, but you only work 2 hours a day, when you're performing." And I think that's true. We've put in, a lot of time beforehand, hours and hours of rehearsal, and actually it's 2 hours of non-stop concentration. And I kind of want to say, how many hours of non-stop concentration do you do in your job? And so that by the time you're done, really, it's taken a lot out of you. And, you get to a point where you think, I don't know, do I want to do this to myself anymore? It's great fun. And it's a privilege to be here and to be with these other actors who are, to my way of thinking, extraordinary. I don't know how many of you saw Chicago. I came down here to start Blithe Spirit at the time Chicago was still running. And I was simply blown away by the talent. Some of those people are in this show. And so I'm feeling, oh my gosh, what a delight and what a privilege to be sharing the stage with them. It really is. But I don't know, as far as the future goes, I don't know.